welcome back to Life and Sport podcast. And you guys may be sensing a bit of a theme. I've started approaching a lot of former Leeds players because I'm a Leeds tragic, proud of my heritage, and what better way than to express that by getting the chance to interview legends of the team and the staff and whatnot. We've got a lot of guests coming on in the future, and our current guest today is Jon Newsome, part of the 91-92 Division 1 winners squad. Thank you for joining me today. And as we were just talking off recording, how was your weekend? Because it's now Tuesday night my time, Tuesday morning for you.
Yeah, good morning, or good evening, should I say. All good. I was working at the Sheffield Wednesday Leeds United game on Friday evening. So I did the radio. I do the BBC Radio Leeds stuff. Saturday, I work as a football agent as well. So Saturday, I was at a game. Sunday in England, it was Mother's Day. So did my official duties and went to see Mama Bear. A busy weekend, but yeah, not one that I'm complaining about.
That's fair, yeah. Well, Mother's Day in Australia is the second Sunday in May, for a fun little fact, and our Father's Day is the second Sunday in September here.
Oh, right, okay.
Bit different, but yeah, that's awesome. Quick question I have before we get started about the career journey. Obviously, you played for both clubs, Sheffield Wednesday and Leeds United. Is it just for you when it comes to that sort of game in particular, especially over the weekend, it's football's the winner because you played for both, or is it you've got a bit of love for one over the other sort of thing?
It's a question that I was asked too many times on
Sorry.
Friday evening. No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not complaining.
Okay.
I was born and bred in Sheffield.
Okay.
So was brought up as a Sheffield Wednesday supporter. Went to my first game when I was 6 years of age. Stood on the Spion Cop with my dad. Was fortunate enough to come through the ranks at Sheffield Wednesday and made my debut at Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, then went to Leeds. Got a real affinity for Leeds. Got a real affinity for Norwich City as well. But I do a lot of work for Leeds. I work on match days. I do hosting in the East Stand on match days at home games. I've been doing quite a bit of commentary on BBC Radio Leeds as well. So yeah, I do have a real close allegiance with Leeds United. Want them to win every week.
Except when they play Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, when it comes to Friday night, it's really difficult because I get stick off Leeds fans for being a Wednesday fan, and I get stick off the Sheffield Wednesday fans for wanting Leeds to do well. I literally can't win. And it's funny because there's if you look in the history, especially back in like the time where I was playing, there was a lot of footballers went from Sheffield Wednesday to Leeds. Mel Sterling.
A lot.
I walked in the media room on Friday, and there's a guy, John Pearson, who used to play, Big John Pearson. And the guy who runs the media said to me, "Oh, who do you want to win tonight?" And I said, "I bet you've not asked him."
Yeah.
I bet you've not asked him that question. And I don't know what it is about me, but they all seem to pile on.
Why didn't you ask Mel Sterling? No, ask Jon Newsome.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So, Mel writes a column in the programme at Sheffield Wednesday, but I never see him getting called out. And I get dog's abuse for it. But anyway, it is what it is, isn't it?
Well, as I said, football's the big winner, regardless, as long as it's a good game and, it's a real winner.
Yeah, I think the difficult part on Friday night was that both teams really needed the points.
Yeah.
Sheffield Wednesday really needed the points to try and climb out. It would have been the first time they were out the bottom three all season. But Leeds really needed the points to put pressure on Ipswich and Leicester.
Yep.
So a really difficult one. So I had to be quite impartial if I could, but when I was doing the commentary. But I couldn't win. I couldn't win on Friday night. Simple as that.
That's fair enough. And obviously Ipswich got the loss. And so did Leicester. If I'm probably wrong in assuming that. No, one of them tied and one of them got the loss. So that means Ipswich are still below Leeds, and Leeds are now only a few points shy of overtaking Leicester.
Yeah. Ipswich were winning. I think they got beat by Cardiff, didn't they?
That's right, they did. Yes, it was against Cardiff. The first time and only time I'll ever root for Cardiff in a game
Yeah.
was because if Ipswich lost, they stayed below Leeds.
That's right. A lot of football to be played, though. Really,
Oh,
a lot.
absolutely.
Nine games to go. Lots of twists and turns. Leeds are doing really, really well, exceptionally well. The damning thing for me is that the business that they did at the start of the season wasn't done until, and I understand why it was, but it wasn't done until the final week of the window. So
Yep.
the last week of August, you'd already played 4, maybe 5 games. If you put another 6 points, 8 points on our total, then they'd be running away with the league now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So the run that they've been on is just incredible, really is.
But as everyone says, it's not over till it's over. So fingers crossed we get that automatic promotion. But honestly, if someone had told me this time last year that Leeds are going to be potentially fighting for automatic promotion back into the Premier League this year, I'd have laughed in your face. I would have said maybe 2-3 seasons realistically as a supporter, looking from the outside in. But now I'm even more confident than in the club. If the reason I'm trying to get 91, 92 players and also 89 and 90 players from Leeds is because for some reason, and I don't know why, it could just be me, that this year seems very similar to the 89-90/91-92 sort of squad and season vibes compared to the Bielsa promotion time as well. So that's one of my reasons for getting yourself and others from that time, that period in time of Leeds on the podcast. And if you don't mind me asking, before we again get stuck into the interview sort of questions, is do you sort of get that same sort of sense, or is it different over there in Leeds? Elevate your hydration game like never before with no added sugar, all natural colors and flavors, and up to 25 grams of protein per serve. Caffeine boosted flavors, on the go protein hydration with the 9 essential BCAAs derived from whey protein isolate. These products are HASTA approved for athletes looking for that edge pre-training, during a game, and afterwards for recovery. Embrace a healthier way to energize with a fusion of flavor and function that keeps you moving forward. And don't just take our word for it. Experience the refreshing transformation with ENRGPRO. It's not just protein water, it's your new essential ally. Together, let's break barriers and build a future where fitness and wellness are accessible to all. Go to energypro.com.au and use our code LS10 for 10% off at checkout.
I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. There's a real camaraderie. There's a real togetherness in the squad. You can see that within the squad, and they've had a little bit of adversity. I think under Marcelo Bielsa, the club had been in the doldrums for so long. And it's a bit like Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday have been down for far worse than Leeds have had to experience. And it becomes a bit of the norm. It becomes like the expectation level is we're going to have another season of pain and hardship. And I think that's where Leeds supporters were. And then Marcelo came in and turned the football club upside down. And did amazing things, and so I think they just rode the rest of the wave more. Whereas this time, don't listen. Daniel Farke has done an incredible job, really has.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot more. I think it feels like there's a lot more togetherness and camaraderie, and that's not an insult to the Bielsa team because I know they were obviously very together and very in sync. But yeah, I do get where you're coming from with that feeling.
Yeah, it's just something about it. And I definitely would agree with what you've said. Obviously, now it's time for the interview sort of thing about your career and your journey. My first question, it's the same question for every guest. What is your earliest memory of football?
My earliest memory of football? Probably playing football on the driveway of my family home with my brother. So yeah, I've got a brother who's a couple of years older than me, and we used to just play football on when we were 6, 7 years old, probably even younger.
Nice.
Yeah, that was it.
That's
And
awesome.
then and then I remember
Would you have to be stuck in goal because you were the youngest?
no, because I
Huh?
was always like really tall. So
Oh, okay.
I was always as tall as my brother, even though he was 2 years older than me. So no, I was never in goal. We take it in turns when there was just me and him
Okay.
playing.
Yep.
But yeah, and then I remember when I retired, my mom and dad gave me not a scrapbook. They gave me like a massive box full of scrapbooks and memorabilia and programs when I was playing and stuff. And in this first scrapbook, were some cuttings from a newspaper that used to have in Sheffield called the Greenan, and it was
Hmm.
printed on green paper.
Yep.
Hence,
I've
it was
heard of the
called the
Greenan.
Greenan. And it was the sports paper. And
It was
I'd
you would get every league, even 20th,
yeah,
even
everything.
20th division. Yeah.
Yeah. Down to step 10, whatever it would be. Everything was in there. And you my parents had a news agent. So on a Saturday evening, the men would be stood outside the news agents waiting for the Greenan to be delivered because it was
Yep.
printed after the football scores and the write-ups, and yeah, it was amazing. But I remember in this scrapbook there was a little piece what my mum had cut out from the Greenan, and it was a five-a-side football team that I'd entered into a competition locally. And it was just me and my mates.
Yeah.
And we got to the final. And we played against proper football clubs.
Yep.
So that's probably my first real memory of like official football, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Like competitive football, you could say, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
You know,
rather than
that's
just kicking
awesome.
about. Yeah.
You know, that's awesome because I actually
I
just
think I was
started.
about I think it was about 7, something like
Yeah.
that.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
actually really cool because I just started some five-a-side football myself last year in winter. Mate, because I mainly played rugby league and those sort of sports that are a lot more popular over here. But I gave five-a-side outdoor, but still sort of netted in general. And yeah, it's honestly a great time. It's a great sort of sport. If you're not looking for anyone that's listening, if you're not looking at wanting to play the full 11-a-side outdoor on the field, but you're still wanting a bit of fitness, bit of fun, give five-a-side a go. And Jon Newsome is
Oh yeah,
definitely
it's
the
intense.
product of that.
Massively intense, yeah. Massively intense, yeah.
Absolutely. And obviously, you mentioned earlier Sheffield Wednesday, and you were part of their youth academy, for lack of a better term. What was it like, going through the youth of the club that you grew up following at the time?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very different setup to
Yeah.
what there is now. So back then, the sort of like the pinnacle of your schoolboy career was representing your city.
Hmm.
So I played for my school, and I played for a Sunday league team, and then I got called up to represent Sheffield, the city of Sheffield. So playing for Sheffield boys was like the real pinnacle
Yep.
of your age group, and only when you were really sort of like 14 and onwards did football clubs come and approach you. But back then, Sheffield Wednesday had set up what they call a centre of excellence.
Yep.
So I was 12 years of age when they approached me to go down and train and have some coaching with them. So I did that, and then you could, on your 14th birthday, you could sign what they call schoolboy forms.
Okay.
So I signed schoolboy forms for Sheffield Wednesday, which then connected me with Sheffield Wednesday and didn't allow me to go to any other clubs. It made me,
Do
collaborate
like an
and be part.
apprenticeship as a youngster at Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, but you were at school as well, so
Yeah.
you went down and trained 2-3 nights a week, and then when you were 16, you played in their under 16s, which were called Middlewood Rovers. And then you had to write a letter before you left school. You had to write a letter to the manager of the football club, who was Howard Wilkinson at the time, and ask whether you were
Yep.
going to be offered an apprenticeship, which back
How
then
it
was
say for you?
actually, yeah, it was a government scheme called a YTS, which was the
Hmm.
youth training scheme. Uh, and again, in the scrapbook is a copy of the letter that I wrote to Howard Wilkinson and the response that I got to say that
And,
they were offering
and,
an apprenticeship,
and he did say,
which was
yes, well,
amazing.
we want to have you.
Yeah, yeah, which was like amazing for me. It was like everything I'd ever dreamed about. Especially being a Sheffield Wednesday fan, I wanted to play for the club. Um, so yeah, and that was the start of the journey. Really, did 2 years as an apprentice. Got offered a professional contract, a 1 year pro. Made my debut in the September of my first year as professional.
What was that like?
Played.
Being able to tell your family, hey, I'm getting a start in, the first team.
Yeah, yeah, that was crazy, really, because back then you played. There was reserve team football, so
Yep.
there was no under 21s, under 23 stuff. It was under 19s, which was the intermediates or juniors.
Yep.
Then it was a reserve team football, so you were playing with the first team players who were not playing on a Saturday, and
Yep.
so so you had to grow up quickly. Um, and so I got put into the squad, which was amazing. I came on at Arsenal as a sub for about 2 minutes at the end of the game. So that was like my official debut. And then my league debut was away at Millwall,
Oh
which
wow,
was
against Millwall.
yeah,
Jeez.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So
Bit of a
that
baptism
was
of fire, you could say.
yeah, baptism of fire, exactly. So yes, and yeah, it was great. My parents were obviously really proud. My grandfather, who was an avid, like mad Sheffield Wednesday supporter, um, who never really, if I look back when I was a lad coming through, never really had much to say about my career. Never was, because back in the day, back in those days, the men, they didn't, they never spoke about things like that. They were men, weren't they? He worked in the steel works, and you know, um, but then I was told that on my he came to Hillsborough to watch me in a game, um, with my auntie, and she said he was like stood up in the crowd shouting, "That's my grandson," and things like that. And I'd never, I was not completely unaware that he was even the slightest bit like proud of what I'd done. So because they didn't want to show their emotions back then, did they?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
so yeah, it was a really really proud moment for me. That was under Ron Atkinson.
Yep.
And then really for about 18 months, I never ever got a sniff of getting in the first team or in the squad. I was never included in the squad again. And I became a bit frustrated, in all honesty.
I would too.
Yeah, because I'd had a taste of it. I wanted to play. I'd been playing in the reserves for probably 4 or 5 years. Didn't want to continue playing in the reserves. So so when I made my debut, or when I got in the first team, they offered me an extension of my contract. So they gave me another year.
Yep.
So at the end of that second year, he came to me and offered me a new contract, which I turned down. I mean, there was no such thing as agents or
Hmm.
things like that. I
You
didn't even
handled
tell
it
my.
all
I was
yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah, I was living at home with my parents at the time. I didn't even tell my parents. So no, so I sort of like turned the contract down, which didn't go down too well with Ron Atkinson, in all
It wouldn't.
honesty. Yeah, got a little bit heated, or from his side anyway. And that was it. I just said, look, I want to play football at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
I want to play first team football, and whether that's League One, League Two, Conference, National League, I don't know where my level is, but I'm obviously not in your plans because
Hmm.
you've not included me at all until the very last game of the season. And then
When
he
it didn't
played me.
matter if I started, sort
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah, he played me in the final game of the season and then
That's a
offered
bit of
me a
a
new
piss take,
contract.
in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit like, it was just a little bit of he's dangling the carrot
I
to
was
say,
just going
right,
to say, yeah,
you
dangling
know,
the carrot. Yeah.
and I was like, no, I'm not having that. I'm not doing that. Um, so yeah, I turned it down and really didn't know what was going to happen or where I was going to go. Um, and then a couple of days later, there was a tiny little article, tiny little piece in the local Sheffield Star
Yep.
newspaper, and he just said I'd turn my contract down, and then Howard Wilkinson's number two was a guy called Michael Hennigan,
Yep.
and Mick Hennigan was my youth team coach at Sheffield Wednesday. So when Howard left Sheffield Wednesday, went to Leeds, Mick Hennigan went with him.
Yep.
And he rang me and just said, I understand you've turned your contract down. I was like, yeah. He said, right, well, the gaffer wants to see you at Ellen Road tomorrow morning at 10:30.
Wow.
I was like, right, wow. So it's not far. It's like an hour's drive, isn't it, from Sheffield? 45 minutes, an hour. It's not far. So yeah. So I following morning jumped in the car, zoomed up to Ellen Road, got out the car, and Mick Hennigan was there to greet me. And the first question he asked me was, "Where's your dad?" I said, "Yeah, exactly." So I was like, "Well, my dad's at work."
Yeah.
And he went, "Right, well, the gaffer won't speak to you without your mum or your dad being here."
Okay.
Which I look back, I was 20 years of age, but I look back now and I look at, the difference between Ron Atkinson, who got me in his office by myself and was trying to effectively like blackmail me or bully me into signing a contract.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And then going up to Ellen Road and Howard Wilkinson saying, "You know what, I'm doing this properly, I'm doing this right."
Absolutely. There's definitely a lot of
Yeah. So I had to get my dad on the phone. Dad, you've got to get up to Ellen Road. They won't speak to me without you being here. And so I hung around while my dad went home, got changed, shot up the motorway.
Yep.
He can walk in there. I always remember there was a big guy, big scout who was at the club, Ian McFarlane.
Yep.
And Howard Wilkinson said, "Mr. Newsome, have you had any lunch?" I said, No, I've just come straight from work. So he said to Ian McFarlane, "Macca, go and take Mr. Newsome and his son for some lunch to the hotel." So off he took us, wine and dined us at the Hilton Hotel.
The stuff people get these days, but back then.
Yeah. So my dad was like, sat there with a fillet, should have been at work, sat with a fillet steak, and he's nudging me going, you're signing here. No matter what, I think no matter what they'd have offered me. Anyway, we went back and he offered me a contract, did Howard. And the money was a lot better than had been offered at Sheffield Wednesday, but it wasn't about that. It was the fact that he said to me, "I want you in my first team by the end of the season."
Wow.
Yeah. That's why I'm bringing you to the football club. I want you in my team by the end of the season.
You're in my plans. Yeah.
It's over to you. And that's all you want. You want an opportunity. You want to be given a chance, So yeah, I mean, I've got so much to thank him for. Him and Mick Hennigan between them to take me there and give me the opportunity.
Absolutely. You were wined, dined, and then signed by the sounds of it, which is incredible. As you said, a lot more professional, but also a lot more, a better hospitality, etc., compared to Ron Atkinson, as you said, basically cornering you, blackmailing you, sort of thing. That's definitely chalk and cheese, you could say. And in the 91-92 First Division, obviously Leeds won it, which was incredible for anyone that was Leeds fan based or Leeds in the club and the squad. So my question for you is, obviously you were in the first team plans for Howard, obviously a bit marred by injury to an extent as well, but you definitely you still played a pivotal role in that season. What was it like being part of that squad and in general that entire season at Leeds?
Well, I mean, for me, just to be involved to begin with, start pre-season. I mean, to walk into that dressing room on the very first day of pre-season was quite nerve-wracking. I didn't really know that many people. Some really big characters in there. Your Gordon Strackens, your Gary McAllisters, Chrissy Fairclough, Mel Sterland, John Luke.
Huge names.
big characters, big names, big players. Lee Chapman, and I'd been an apprentice at Sheffield Wednesday when Lee Chapman was there, Mel Sterling was there, Carl Schutt was there, Imre Varadi was there. So I'd been like, the cleaning their boots and washing the bats out and getting the kit for them, and now all of a sudden I'm walking in the door. I'm amongst them. So yeah, that was. And then I got a knee injury. I got an inflammation in my knee, which they couldn't work out what it was. I had an operation that didn't really rectify it. Anyway, they finally scanned me and found I got this thing growing on a tendon, a ganglion growing on a tendon. So they injected it and got rid of it, and I was all right. So, but it wasted like 2 or 3 months. It really dragged on. So it was about getting back fit again, and then the gaffers sort of like putting me in the squad, and I was traveling, and back then we only had like 2 subs or 3 subs, so there wasn't like 9 subs.
I was going to say there wasn't that many.
No, there were only like 16 of you travelled on a match day. You got the 11 starting, 2 or 3 subs, and then you got a spare 1 or 2 bodies, and so to start traveling and being in amongst it was great. And then I was sub at Tottenham. We were at White Hart Lane. I was sub. Mel was playing right back. He was struggling with his ankle at the time. He came off with about 30 minutes to go. I think I went on, playing at right back. Scored from a corner, which was just like mental, really.
Silky is what it was. I'll try and find the footage for anyone that's listening and pop it on screen now in the episode on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube at this point, pause the episode on Spotify, go over to YouTube and try and just watch this. It was silky is the only way to describe it. It was like a glove, as you could say. Continue.
Yeah, it was from a corner, just managed to pick it up and
literally the stuff of dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was, and that was it. And yeah, we just, and I've told the story, and I do some events in Leeds with the lads, and all I concentrated on was trying to play as best I could, as good as I could, because I wanted to be in the team the following week.
Yeah.
And never contemplated, never thought about winning the title, where we were in the table, any of that.
You just wanted to maintain your spot in the squad.
Yeah. And I remember I got dropped against Man City, I think it was. I was sub. I think we got turned over like 3 or 4-0. And then he put me back in. Played a few games, played at Anfield. We got a really good point, 0-0 away at Anfield, playing against Ian Rush, who was just like, you know what I mean? Just like, I was pinching myself, Well, I used to watch Ian Rush when I was a kid on television, and to suddenly be playing against him at Anfield. And I thought I played well that day. Got us, we got a point. And then it came to a head, crescendo when we went to Sheffield United, and the day that we actually won it, and we knew Manchester United had got to go to Anfield. That was going to be difficult for them, and that was probably the craziest game of football I've ever been involved in.
I was going to say, before we touch on the Sheffield United game in particular, which was an incredible game, because anyone that's watched or listened to the special that Leeds United TV put out on like DVD and now on YouTube, go ahead and watch it. Like Mel Sterling put a bet with a bloke, like a $5 on that the bloke said he wouldn't score against Sheffield United, and he did a little thing around the corner post and literally eyeballed off the bloke as well. That's the sort of character
that was when Mel scored. That was the year before.
Oh, it was. That's my that's my bad. It's still very funny.
That's how I ended up. That's how I ended up playing the last 10 games of the season, because Mel had done his ankle,
Yeah, that's right. It is.
which ended up finishing his career. So
Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
so and I'm real good friends with Mel. I see loads of him, and it's bittersweet football. It's a
Mm.
it's sliding doors, and
It's the
Mel's
best thing and the
career.
worst thing of your life, sort of thing.
Yeah, Mel's career was coming to an end, and he had to drop out at that running. And he'd had a fantastic season. He was an unbelievable footballer. He was one of my idols when I was growing up. Um, but when he had to drop out, that was my opportunity.
Yep.
That was me given my chance.
Yep.
So it really is a bittersweet scenario in the game.
Absolutely. And one topic and one thing that sort of comes to mind from watching that sort of docu-series, because I got them mixed up because I'd literally watched the 89-90 promotion
Yeah, yeah,
documentary series that they made and the 91-92
yeah, yeah.
docu-series. So I got them crossed over. Um, but from what I'm led to remember, like from watching those, it was sure Leeds won the league that year and in 91-92, but you didn't know you'd won it by winning the game against Sheffield. It wasn't
No,
until
that's
like
right.
later that night, sort of thing. So my next question
Yeah,
is, unfortunately, Leeds didn't get the chance. The whole squad and the team and the town didn't get the chance to sort of celebrate by winning it in the game at Ellen Road, sort of thing. It was Tony DeRigo had gone over to see his family in Wales, sort of thing, as far as I'm led to believe. So my question is, where were you when you found out that the team had won the division?
well, obviously, I'm a Sheffield guy,
Yep.
and I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan. So to play against Sheffield United, who were Sheffield Wednesday's arch enemy,
Yep.
um,
Definitely they are.
also to score in that game, um, which was, like I say, a really crazy game. We won 3-2. So me and Gary Speed went
Mhm.
back to my parents' home in Sheffield, and
Yep.
we watched the Liverpool Manchester United game on TV.
That's so interesting because so many other of the teammates in the documentary were like, didn't want to watch it. Howard didn't want to watch it at all.
Yeah, that's
The
right. Yeah,
gaffer
yeah.
didn't
No,
want to watch it. Yeah.
we went back, watched it. Obviously, realised we'd won the title.
Yep.
So that was it. Then the phones were going. The guy, it was the lads. Right, where we're meeting. So me and Gary jumped in my car and just like flew up that motorway
Yep.
back to where we lived in Leeds. He got an apartment near where I got an apartment. So quickly went and met the lads. We went out for drinks and food and celebrated. And so yeah. It was like a bit of a wild night.
I can imagine it was probably a wild few weeks, not just a wild night. Um, and obviously, after your time at Leeds came to an end, you moved to Norwich. What was that like? Moving from Leeds, success and whatnot, over to Norwich.
Yeah, so I'd done like 3 seasons at Ellen Road. It was the summer. It was the break,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a phone call from a journalist, and he said, and he was a journalist who I knew. He'd done, he
Okay.
used to do a bit of stuff for Leeds United, and he said to me, "Look, I'm just giving you a heads up that I know Norwich City have made a bid for you,
Oh,
and Leeds have accepted it."
you're like, what? This is news to me, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I'm like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I know you guys are always the last ones to find out." He said, "So
Oh, yeah.
don't act upon it, but I'm just giving you a heads up." So for a
That's
few
a bit
days, I
shit.
was like,
That is a bit shit. Like, you were the last to know, more or less.
"Yeah, but that's how it is. That's how it is, And then I came home and I got a message on my house landline answer
Yep.
machine, and it was Howard Wilkinson's secretary. Just said, Howard wants to. Can you come down tomorrow? Howard wants to speak to you. So I thought, aye, here we go.
Yep.
So I went down the following day, and he said, "Look, we've accepted a bid for you from Norwich City. You're not going to play. I'm bringing another player in. We're changing how we're doing it. We've accepted the bid." I was like, "Yeah, fine. If it's my time to go,
Business.
yeah, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go, isn't it? Don't." Um, So that was it. So at that time I got an agent for myself. So me and my agent jumped on a flight down to Norwich. It's quite a bit of a trek.
Yep.
Went down there, and Gary Megson was the assistant manager of Norwich City. So Gary Megson was another Sheffield Wednesday player who I was an apprentice for. So he
Yep.
knew me from Sheffield Wednesday that way. John Dean was the manager. Went down there, and they literally just rolled the red carpet out. They, you know,
Wow.
what I mean? Yeah. You just, I think
Felt
the
like
thing at
God
Leeds,
almost.
yeah, I think the thing at Leeds was I was always unsure about whether I was playing every week. David O'Leary had got brought in, and all of a sudden he was playing in front of me, but he kept breaking down through injury, and then I was going on as sub, and then the week after he'd play again, and I was in and out the team, and I went down there, and they said, right, I was 24 years of age. They went, you're going to be captain. Here's a captain's armband. And they got some, I mean, they were in Europe the year before.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, did the press conference, agreed to sign a contract, did the press conference, got asked a question about the fee. Was completely unaware what the fee was. Turned out it was £1 million. I was there
Oh, wow.
first. I was their first £1 million signing. I was their record signing, which blew me away. Really, I was like, "Wow,"
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's all a bit. And then like, "Oh, you're going to be captain. You're going to lead us." So yeah.
Bit of pressure being put on you at
Yeah,
that
but
time.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved that responsibility. I love that.
Oh, that's good.
We all like to be, we all like to feel loved, don't we?
Yeah.
We all like to feel welcome and wanted and needed, and that's what I felt like when I went to Norwich, really. And I think I probably played my best football down there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then after your time at Norwich, you headed back home to where it all started, sort of full circle moment to Sheffield Wednesday. What was that like?
Yeah, well, Norwich was struggling financially, so it was a couple of days before the end of the transfer window. There was a couple of clubs. There was Spurs were in, Tottenham Hotspur were in for me. I think Aston Villa, Sheffield Wednesday, but the chairman of Norwich City, a guy called Robert Chase, was trying to get as much money as he could. So he'd agreed a fee with Sheffield Wednesday, but he wanted more money from Tottenham.
Gotcha.
And Tottenham weren't willing to pay it because they realised that he'd agreed a lesser fee with Sheffield Wednesday, and it all got a bit. And obviously,
bad taste in the mouth of Tottenham, sort of.
yeah, and obviously I'd left Sheffield Wednesday. I was a Sheffield Wednesday fan, so I felt like there's probably a little bit of unfinished business there. I wanted to go back and make a mark, and I thought I was joining a Sheffield Wednesday club that was on the ascendancy, and unfortunately, it turned out that the club was struggling, and we had there's 2 or 3 years of hard work, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, got an injury, got a bad ankle injury, dislocated my ankle, came back from that, got fit. Was supposed to be leaving. I was going to go to Birmingham City. That fell down at the last minute. Went on loan to Bolton. They wanted to sign me, but again, Sheffield Wednesday wouldn't let me go. And then I got a knee injury, and that ended up finishing me. So that was it.
It's literally in my notes that I'm reading at the moment was the retirement due to injury in 2000. Was it a very tough decision sort of thing for you?
No, I mean, I just turned 29. My knee, I'd got bone damage. I got damage to the bone in my knee, my femur, and I'd lost the back of my kneecap. So I'd got like raw bone on raw bone. There was no. They tried a couple of procedures on it, and I'd had 2 lots of surgery, but it didn't work. So there was no alternative. It wasn't a choice. The choice was taken out of my hands, really, which was. It was devastating, really.
And how was that transition for the first 18 months into retirement for you?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's because I'm 29, 30 years of age, been in football all my life, and all of a sudden it's been snatched away from me because You're expecting to maybe play till you're 34, 35. I thought that I'd got another 4 or 5 years left in me. I looked after myself, and it was just one of those things.
You looked after yourself, but you needed to look after you.
Yeah, exactly. But also the day in the summer that I retired, there was a young lad at Sheffield Wednesday. I'm not naming him, and he got a real bad knee injury, and he was 19, and he had to retire as well. And
Oh, geez, before his career had even started.
Yeah, but I looked at him and thought he'd swap me, wouldn't he? He'd swap my career for his. So
yeah,
my glass half full or is it half empty? Instead of feeling sorry for myself, I look back on my career and said, how fortunate I was. I've lived my dream. Yeah, I'd have loved for it to have lasted longer, but it didn't. And sometimes you've just got to deal with the hand that you dealt.
Yeah, fair. That's honestly really, for lack of a better term, sage advice for anyone as well, because at the end of the day, not everyone gets that fairy tale finish in sports of going out on a winning season sort of thing. It's quite often, more often than not, injury caused sort of thing. And obviously, you've been retired now for going on 24 years this year. So what have you been up to since your retirement?
So I wanted to stay back. I just wanted to stay in the game. Yep. So I sort of like embarked on doing my coaching badges. So going through the English FA and doing the coaching. So I did all my coaching badges. Started working in the academies. Went into non-league football. Was managing non-league. Family sort of like took a nosedive. Ended up. I got two young kids. I was married with two young children. Me and my wife split up, so that was difficult. Like managing the kids, so and being in football, because football is evenings, it's weekends.
It's never stopping.
That's when, as a single father, that's where you need to be. That's where your time needs to be allocated to your kids. So I made the decision. It wasn't even a decision. It was, there was no decision to be made. So I came out of the game, just to make sure that I was around there for my kids. Really, went into something else. Went into the motor trade. Ran my own company for 15 years. Kids grew up, became less dependent, and then I've gone back into the game. And I've been working as an agent for the last 4 or 5 years.
That's awesome. And as you just word vomit, and as you mentioned earlier in the interview / chat, that you're doing a bit of work for BBC Radio Leeds for match day commentary sort of stuff. Is that just for Leeds home games, or is that for Leeds away games as well?
No, I do majority of the away games, and for the home games, I actually work for the club in their hospitality.
Oh, okay.
So so I do hosting in the hospitality. So we go around the boxes and the lounges, and we speak about the game and waffle nonsense at times. But the Leeds supporters seem to enjoy what we waffle. So.
No, that's awesome. So I've got some quick fire questions, because anyone that listens to the podcast will know that there's 3 certainties in life: deaths, taxes, and quick fire questions in this podcast. And then I've got 2 final questions after for you. So first of all, the first quick fire question is Apple or Android?
Apple.
Absolutely. I can't believe Dylan Kerr said Android. He's the only one out of 217 interviews that has said Android. Can you believe it?
Let me say this. I'm not surprised.
Okay, I'll relay that to Dylan and let him know. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Favorite movie?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Ooh, that is a good film. How do you like your steak?
Great film.
Great film.
Great film. Hilarious.
Oh, it's so funny. It really is. It's just so well done. And hopefully the way you like your steak is not well done. So yeah, how do you like your steak?
Rare.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, depending what the steak is.
Yeah,
depending what the steak is.
Well, then what's your favorite cut of steak then?
I like a fillet, which I have rare, but my favourites probably a ribeye.
Yeah, I like a ribeye or a porterhouse. Yeah, and
Yeah,
medium rare,
ribeye
but
porter.
closer to the rare side, sort of thing.
Yeah, if I have a ribeye, I like it medium because I like to have the fat. I like to cook the fat down to render the
Yeah,
fat down. So yeah, really
yeah,
tasty. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
nice. And final quick fire question is: flip flops or Crocs?
Sorry.
Flip flops like thongs, or
Oh, flip
Crocs?
flops.
Yeah,
Oh, flip flops all day long.
absolutely. And so I've
Do
got two
not. I
final
do not
questions for you.
own. I do
Do
not
not own
own a pair
Crocs.
of Crocs.
That's good to hear. My final two questions are: which coach or coaches had the biggest impact on the player you were and the person you are today?
Oh, there's a number actually. Mick Hennigan
Hmm.
was obviously had a massive input with me. A guy called Frank Barlow, who worked under at Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously Howard Wilkinson. Um, so yeah, I would say they're the three that I'd probably the biggest. There's another guy called Albert Phelan who was at Sheffield Wednesday who had me from probably being 14 up to 16, 17. So yeah, they mold you, don't they? They mold you as
Yep.
individuals, as players. So yeah, I've got yeah, unfortunately, Albert's no longer with us. Frank, I see occasionally, and it's like so nice to see him.
Yep.
Mick McKennigan's not very well, unfortunately, so it's really difficult to try and get to see him. But Howard sees him quite regularly, so when I see Howard, I get a bit of an update on how he's doing. So
Well,
yeah.
that's good to hear. And my final question for you is: what's next for Jon Newsome?
Oh, what's next? 54 this year.
Okay.
Uh, Probably trying or still trying to forge ahead with my work as an agency, helping younger players, helping mentor players and their families. So I really enjoy that side of it. So yeah, just continue on that vein of what I'm doing. And then I don't know, next 10 years, look at maybe retiring, maybe go and play a bit more golf if I can,
Yep.
if that's possible. Yeah, yeah. It's just you know what, enjoy life. That's what
Yeah.
it's about. As long as I've got my health, which is all important. Yeah, keep cracking on. I feel really fortunate to do what I do in and around the game. I've seen the other side of it when I came out of football and I went
Yep.
into the motor trade and ran my own business, and I realised how difficult that side of life is. So, and it's not always enjoyable,
Nah.
So to be involved in football in and around the game, which I love, is just a really fortunate position to be in. So yeah, I'm a lucky lad, really.
Awesome.